right, so don't forget to do that. All right, so everybody should be seeing the main meeting slide there. And welcome everybody to the May meeting of the Seattle Robotics Society. Glad you guys could join us today. Before we dive in too deep here, you can see on the top of the screen there a note that I am recording, and let's see, I figure out how is there a way to, well, I'll just leave that up there for now. Anyway, so it's been requested by a number of people to record these meetings and put them on YouTube. So we shall, this should be an experiment and see if I can make that happen. I think it should be pretty straightforward. So anyway, just so you're aware, try not to expose anything that you don't want the world to see. So. And it'll, like I said, it may take a day or two for me to get it up there. So it takes a little while to upload it and all that. But anyway, so we will see how this works. So with that, we will follow the typical agenda here. So I won't go through a lot of details with it. However, I have, let's see here. Oh, shoot, now I got to figure out how to get to it. Got to get to a window where I can get the Google Documents link for you guys, so you can put stuff in there. Gonna, I do need more monitors here. It's like I can't. It's like finding the screen where that thing is situated. Oops, sorry about that. Get out of there. All right, I'm gonna just stop sharing for just a sec here while I dig up the, get back to my, I've actually got the link in this slide, but it's not real handy to get to it during while the computer is in presentation mode. So okay, come here. Let's see here. Chat. I probably should get a better computer for doing this here. This laptop, I think, is like just a teeny bit underpowered for what I'm doing with it here. All right. Come on. Come on. Let me in there. Okay. All right, so I just pasted the link to the Google Doc in there. So if you've got anything that you want to throw in there, just go ahead and open that document up and set it in a tab and throw stuff in there as you come up with it. All right, so let's see. Let's get back to. See, I wonder, you guys probably don't really need to see these slides for the most part, do you? I could pretty much just talk through them. That kind of makes things easier. Then you get to look at my friendly smiling face here. Okay. So anyway, go ahead and put stuff in the Google Doc as you like. I will turn that thing into a file that I'll post with the meeting minutes when we're done. So let's see, next one here. So I haven't had any communication with Kevin Ross lately about the new physical location, but I'm guessing that with things starting to open up now, particularly over the next couple of months, I'm sure they will be selecting a new venue, and hopefully we'll have maybe a little nicer, more modern place to have physical meetings. You know, I'm hopeful that they'll get someplace with a nice, like a video conference room, for example, someplace that's actually set up for doing this sort of thing. You know, you remember we used to just project on the painted wall and stuff, and you know, that kind of works okay, but it's definitely better if you got an actual screen. So anyway, we'll let you know when something shows up. I think the last time we talked, you know, his plan is to keep it somewhere probably between Seattle and Tacoma, you know, somewhere in that area. So it'll just depend on you know, what they can find, and they need a pretty large space, but I think Seattle, or I should say South End, seems to have an abundance of warehouse space, so I'm sure they won't have any trouble finding something. Let's see, online access to our meetings will probably continue once we start gathering in person. So I'm going to be looking for assistance, because that's a lot more work and logistics to run stuff, you know, to actually do the meeting and then have this video stuff coordinated in the background, you know. So so I'm going to be looking for people to assist with that. So I hope I can count on folks that show up, you know, 1 or 2 people maybe to help out with that. Don't expect it's going to be a super big deal, but just having somebody there to so I don't have to worry about it. And probably be things, you know, simple things like once you get things started, you start recording, and if there's a point where we're going to pause the recording to do that, otherwise, you know, just remember to stop it at the end, so we don't end up with 12 hours of video of nothing. So I'm continuing to do robotics classes for some kids at a church over in Burien. So as far as community outreach, still trying to keep up with that. I started out with the Bobot Basic Stamp 2, and we moved on to a kind of a cool little, they call it, it's you know how these things got such funny names, Elegoo Smart Robot Car version 4.0, and it's a little it's got a little phone app. It has a camera on it, and you can drive this thing remotely, or it's got a couple of autonomous modes in it. So I'm putting together, I didn't mention this to Lloyd or Donna last night when we talked about presentations, but I'm putting together something that I can do at the virtual Robothon event to talk about teaching kids robotics and the tools that I've been using here. So anyway, you can I'll give you some more technical details on that at that time. And I will talk about that event shortly, or maybe I'll let Lloyd talk about it shortly here. But before we get there, let's see, SRS website revamp is continuing. My son and I have been collaborating fairly closely, so I've been trimming content out that doesn't need to be there, and updating and everything else. So we're in the process of kind of putting that all together. So we'll let you know when that goes live. Let's see, a little bit later today. Sorry, man, I'll tell you. Had COVID 2 months ago now, and I'm still recovering from it. So lingering cough is the main thing that's left over. A little bit later, we're going to have a presentation on, well, it's sort of a presentation. It's going to be a discussion that I'm going to facilitate on electric vehicles, and so I'm looking forward to that. And I know Randy's got one. I don't know how many of the rest of you have electric cars or are thinking about getting one, but Hopefully this will be an interesting discussion for you. And let's see. You can always send me presentation ideas. Robert Kellogg has been saturating me with them. I'm actually about a dozen behind now. He's sent me a whole bunch of suggestions, all kind of within about 2-hour period, and so I've had to go and make a document to organize these things so I can keep track of who I've emailed and who I've heard from and who's presenting and all of that. So that's getting to be a so at this point I probably have enough to more than fill out the year if I can even get just, I only need like 3 or 4 more to finish the year. So let me see. We're going to have the electric vehicle discussion this month. I was able to get a fellow student at, I remember which, one of the universities, Joseph Norby, who's going to talk about, he's been studying tails and cheetah tails in particular, and apparently how cheetahs use their tails for dynamic stability in their movements. And he's built a robotic equivalent to that. So he's going to share about that. That's in June. On July, Zen Lee is going to share with us about FreeCAD and robotics. So he's a software developer for FreeCAD, and so he's going to talk about that. And then Josh Piper, who is the founder of MJ Bots Robotic Systems. So he is going to be sharing with us about his company and some of the products that his company has and their research and development. So that'll be in August. So still open from September through December, but I'm anticipating filling that up here soon. So with that, I will, let's see, I will turn it over to Lloyd to talk about the virtual Robothon exhibition that's coming up. So take her away, Lloyd.
Yeah, so on July 10th at 12 o'clock, it'll be on Teams again. We're going to host basically another Robothon or virtual Robothon event. It's called Robothon Exhibition. What it is kind of an extension of the show and tell that we do at the beginning of the meeting. So if you go over to robothon.org, you can get all the nitty-gritty details, but in just summarizing, it'll be about 15 to 20 minutes. So instead of like a little 5-minute spot like we do for show and tell, it'll be like 15 to 20 minutes worth of time. And it'll be a little more structured to talk about basically any type of project or technology that you want to talk about. It's basically structured as there's kind of an introduction where you can kind of give the background and discuss what you're doing, and then a video. So I'm going to host this, so get all the videos to me ahead of time. So we'll play the video, and that can show your bot doing whatever you want it to do or whatever it does. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to run it live. And then following that, there'll be a discussion of how you built it, the problems you ran into, the things that you learned, and some Q&A. And please sign up at the robothon.org page. I think with you, Steve, I think we're now up to 5 people. So this will probably be a 2+ hour event at this point. So it'll be a pretty good thing. And also note that this is not one of our normal SRS meeting times. So it happens the week before our normal SRS meeting in July.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So one of the other things, Donna is looking, so this is both related to the event and for SRS in general. We're trying to find somebody to help with promotion and social media. So if it's something that we just generally are not good at, and I'm horrible at it, like I'm not even on Facebook. But what we really like to find is somebody who is into this stuff and kind of finds it fun and entertaining to both promote the SRS as a group and the various Robothon activities that we're doing. Donna in particular has been interacting with the Dallas Robotics Club, which they've got, they do this really, really, really well. So we're kind of really getting a feel for, this is something we really need for our group to help us grow. Um, if you are anybody like that or know of anybody like that, please reach out to us and feel free to kind of help out in that way. It's kind of I don't know, Steve. Maybe we should make it an officer role or something for the club. Communications officer or something. I don't know.
Well,
we've been looking for this for a long time, so.
We kind of sort of have a position like that, and Tom Carroll was doing that for us a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He was reaching out to the news, the local news, and newspapers and
Yep.
stuff like that. And yeah, we kind of need somebody who likes to do that sort of thing, and maybe who has some connections with the media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and even fundamentally knows what to do. Like I was saying, I was talking about this in our group meeting earlier this week. One of the startups I worked for had a person who full time, this was their job, to do communications and promotion of the group. And when you find somebody who really knows what they're doing, it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's literally like, people look at us and it's like, oh, that robotic stuff is hard. How do you even do that? This person carried that communications and social media roll off with that same level of awe. So I know there's a lot of room for growth here. I just don't know how to do it or even what to look for. So, and I think that's typical of this group, or this entire industry overall. We're not generally super social people. But yeah, so we're looking. If you want to help out with any of that, let myself or Donna know, and we'll try to do what we can with it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I've got at the moment.
Okay. All right. So let's see. So the next slide I've got here, just open discussion. So of course you're going to talk about electric cars and electric vehicles today, and lots of other interesting possibilities. I think one of the ones, medical diagnosis or medical assistance, and basically virtual doctor kind of technology. If anybody happens to catch wind on an interesting place that might be able to do a talk with us on that, that would be cool. Interesting robot sensor technologies or mobility systems. I put together, I've actually got a presentation presentation slide deck I could use for the different ways that robots move themselves. And so that might be kind of interesting to talk about that. And then, of course, there's things like virtual reality, augmented reality, autonomous vehicles. We had a discussion about that a couple of years ago. Technology has been moving pretty rapidly in that arena, so we could definitely revisit that topic. So anyway, if you got any ideas along those lines there, let me know. Lloyd and I still have a couple of each of the two kinds of kits, the Arduino Uno as well as the propeller chip. So you can reach out through the Seattle Robotics Society at Gmail if you're interested in getting one of those, and we'll work out a way to get it to you. Let's see, virtual robot discussions, workshops. Recently, those things have really just been kind of a continuation of the meeting after the meeting. You can just chat, because obviously we're all in our own spaces. Probably a more ideal place actually to work on our robots is in our own workshops or offices or wherever we normally do this sort of thing. Hauling a bunch of gear down to a physical meeting place and setting it all up and then trying to do something productive and then tear it all down, take it home. I don't know how practical that really is. I know there's been people have asked about, like, well, could we get some kind of a permanent workshop, let's say, at our meeting place where equipment could be just set up and left. That's a possibility, depending on what this new first facility ends up being. I don't know whether or not that's an option. but they have a workshop because they host things where kids, for kids come in to work on their robots in that facility. So don't know what sorts of things we might be able to work out, but that would be interesting if we could have a kind of a centrally located place that we could use for our own purposes, and but would probably have to share it most likely. Getting a private space like that might be a push, because we're getting the rent for the place is pretty cheap for us, and we can't really make a lot of demands or certainly nothing nothing excessive. So we just need to kind of work with first and figure out what we can do. So anyway, when a new facility is selected, we'll have the discussion and see what's possible. Okay, with that, we are doing pretty good on time here. So I have, so I'm at the opportunity for you guys to share. Do you all have, or some of you have something that you'd like to show or talk about, or questions you ask, or whatever? Hey, that's not the right answer, Randy. You're supposed to have something. Everybody should have something to share. Richard, Greg, you got something for us this month?
Well, yeah, it's kind of in pieces, but we'll see. Just a second, let me turn off this virtual background so you can see things that aren't shaped like a human. So I've been working on ARM version 3, and it has, well, it's spaghetti mess right now, but it is going to be servo motor driven, belt driven, with all of the motors on the base right here. So I'm using belts to deliver all of that motion up through the two joints of the arm up to the wrist. It's a differential wrist, and as I said, this is ARM version 3. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I don't think there will be an ARM version 4, and I mean, that's where it stands. It will probably be put together later today. I need to take some parts out of versions 1 and 2 to complete this one. So I've been hesitant to do that. All of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into those. And as I've built these arms, there's been a lot of pulleys of different sorts with bearings put into them, and I always have trouble getting bearings, inserted well into something. So I started shopping for what do you call it? A press. And you can get one at Home Depot or like Harbor Freight for $50, $60, a 1 ton or 2 ton, very simple apparatus. But I didn't need something that big. I needed something a little more flexible. And so I put together this contraption. Learned about this is called a toggle clamp. Normally you would use it in a place where you need to clamp something down or clamp from the sides of something. It's threaded on this end, and so I made this frame with this little work surface here, and because it's threaded, you can adjust the height of that, and as a result, I can put different size bolts in here. I also have a a spare chuck that I put an adapter in and can put that in there. And so for all of my 3D printed little pulleys, big and small, that I need to press the bearings into, this has been a lifesaver. So if you need to do the same, I recommend throwing something like that together.
Cool. Okay. Anybody else?
Well, all I did was report all my patios, so I can't get to anything in my garage. It looks beautiful, beautiful concrete. And then I've just been spending all my time trying to buy integrated circuits. Right now.
You got rid of that big that gigantic truck tire, right?
No, I had someone who was all ready to come and get it, and they came with their truck, with their horse trailer to load it up. And then they realized it wouldn't fit through the door of their horse trailer.
Oh, jeez.
If anyone wants a tire that's 6 feet tall,
We have one.
and 3 feet, well, 2.5 feet wide, so about 7.5 feet from corner to corner. There's one in my parking spot right now.
The one small problem is the weight, though, right? How much does it weigh?
I mean, it is 2,000 pounds of tire.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I need a 1-ton truck to move it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit of a heavy lift.
It is definitely one of those things that you need to be planning ahead of time where it is going to go and where it is going to fall before you even think of moving it. It is, yeah, that's a dangerous piece of mass that really wants to roll downhill. And it's wide enough that it won't fall over quickly. So it will get a lot of kinetic energy before it hits something.
I feel like I could use a big tire, but I need one smaller than a horse.
Right. Yeah. This is not that. This is it would be ludicrously large for a tire swing tire. Something like you bury it in the ground and climb on it, climbing equipment tire. It's not CrossFit tire. But if anyone knows where to get analog devices integrated circuits right now with not a 52-week lead time, that'd be really helpful.
Yikes.
Isn't that crazy?
Right?
Off the top of my head, yeah, that's really nasty right now, isn't it, Richard?
It is insane.
Or microchip.
Yeah.
Devices.
Oh, they're down too, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
Everybody's down.
Hey guys, I have an old idea that kind of relates to this thing about the chips not being available. I want to throw this out there just in case anybody has an interest in actually doing this. You know, it struck me a long time ago that the job of keeping track of inventory, and I don't know about any of you guys, but I tend to hoard like chips and parts and stuff. I have like a wall of, okay. So the job of keeping track of inventory, of like keeping track of what I have, right, is basically the same job as keeping track of what a store has, right? So what if somebody were to start a website, which is basically just an interface to a database engine that did inventory for people. So you would go and say, here are all the chips that I have, and this is how many that I have, right? And you would, periodically update that as you used a chip for a project or when you brought new chips in or whatever, and you just want to go through and keep track of your inventory using this website. But here's the key point. There's a bunch of people potentially using the website to do the same thing, and they all have their own individual inventories. And then what they can do is you can say, I desperately need one of this chip that I don't have, I can't get. Does anybody else who's using this inventory system have one of those? And if so, what would you let the chip go for, right? Maybe you could even make it automatic, and then it could turn into a store really easy. All you have to do is just add, like, this is the price that I would charge to sell this chip that I have, and you can adjust those values up or down to increase interest or decrease interest if you want to hold on to something. But the point is that, like, there's times when I'm in the middle of a project and I need a particular chip. I can't get it because it happens to be out of stock everywhere. But maybe it's a chip that's normally $1 and I'd pay $10 for it. So it's an opportunity for somebody to make some money. And also for us to, if Steve sends me a request saying, hey, I'm dying on this thing. I need a Scenic SX28 chip, and I saw that you have one. What do you want for it? And I can say, Steve, you're a good guy. You take care of us at the meetings. Here, you can just have it. It's an opportunity for us to build a community by doing that. Now, all that's necessary is, a half an hour's work of putting together a web server with a database and a competent front end and coming up with, all the bug fixes. And it definitely won't turn into something that controls your life and takes up all your spare time. So, somebody should go and do that. So I don't have to.
It sounds like what you're proposing is something that's really similar to like what Bricklink does for Lego pieces.
Yeah.
Almost exactly that. Yep. And if you could talk them into expanding their service, or maybe we can just misuse. No, I don't think we can misuse their service because they're limited to only Lego parts. I don't think you can add it anymore. Yeah, it's a Lego brick called an NE555.
What 1x5?
Yeah, there you go. or the 2x555 is a 556. Anyway. Chip humor.
Not for that interface, or if they'd be willing to share that source, because that definitely handles, it's already scaled. I mean, I'm sure it's AWS hosted.
And the thing is, as it happens, I've already designed a database for this, but it's SQL, and it's a little bit more complicated than it probably needs to be. And I'd be happy to share the database, but the user interface to it is not. There's kind of a user interface to it too, but it's written in. Oh God, this is so embarrassing. It's written in
LTK.
No, it's written in Visual Basic.
The web. That's fair. That's a good.
Okay. It's all right, Steve. You don't have to kick me out of the group. I'll just leave on my own.
You said that out loud?
I know. Utterly horrific. It was years ago. It was in my youth. I didn't know any better. Don't hate me.
Okay. We'll cut you some slack here, but just this once.
Still being supported. You can't complain.
At least it's not 6502 assembler running in an emulator.
If it was that, it would have some cred as being a cool, retro hack.
Yeah.
And translated into WebAssembly.
Right. There's that curve, right, where as things age, right, they become less and less and less valuable until suddenly they become antiques and they start becoming more and more and more valuable. Well, VB script is right at the bottom of that curve. Anyway, that was my idea. I'll let you guys continue.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely for hobbyist level stuff, that'd be great. There's definitely times when we need just one something weird. This week I just need 4,000 of something really common.
Yeah. I used to years ago. I worked. I don't know how many of you guys remember Almac Strom from back in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
And I worked for them for about 5 years in their retail store, and I acquired all kinds of things during my time there. I mean, I've gotten rid of some of that, but one of the things that I did end up with was all kinds of chips. So I mean, it's like 7400s and 4000 series and stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't tell you what all I have because they're on vast sheets of anti-static foam or black foam, or that nasty black stuff that leaves the nice little carbon dust on the pins of your chips. You know, it was like a great idea that somebody didn't really think through very well. Because I mean, the stuff is, it's anti-static because it's very conductive, but at the same time, it, really messes with socketed parts because it leave that dust everywhere. But it's like I'd have to go through all these boxes and pull all that stuff out and inventory it all. But I ended up with quite a lot of stuff that, that would be pretty cool. And yeah, I could get some of that kind of stuff in there. I mean, I'd be happy to part with some of that stuff to a good home. I don't want to throw the stuff away. I mean, after all, some of these chips are probably actually valuable.
Well, a lot of mine go to, they could turn it into artwork, but I'm not going to use it.
Actually, that's kind of another point behind that idea is that a lot of times we do all of our development around the latest and greatest, the newest chips, whatever's coming out. But it would be kind of cool to reinvigorate the idea of like getting some of these old chips used up or doing something with something that's a little bit more classic. I mentioned, I don't know if anybody's ever even heard of Scenics. They became, oh goodness, they became Ubicom, and then the Parallax Incorporated was actually, you remember the Basic Stamp? Well, the Basic Stamp ran on a PIC, but the Basic Stamp 2 ran on that guy's brother's chip design, and his brother's name happens to be Chip, which is hilarious. But he designed a chip called the Scenics SX28, and then there was a 52, and it was the 52, the SX52 would run at 100 megahertz, 8 bits wide, with a 4x cache. So you basically got pretty close to 100 MIPS at 8 bits. And that same guy went on to design then later the propeller. I don't know if anybody's heard of the propeller. Anyway, the point is that I still have a tube of SX28s and I have a few of the 52s. And they're amazing little processors, fun to program, same basic instruction set as the PIC, which is why they got sued, and that's a whole nother story. Anyway, so it'd be cool to use up some of these old chips, and I'm sure you have like chips that are cool, that are interesting, and it would be fun to play with.
Right. Interesting idea. Anybody else?
Yeah, me. I posted a quick link to Fully Charged, which is a premier EV site that reviews different electric cars, and it's totally pertinent to this week's or this month's topic and stuff. So feel free to review it. Hopefully everybody can see it on Google Docs there. Okay. Yeah. I met Robert Llewellyn in 2019 before COVID all started. And he was a pretty amazing guy. And I was lucky because I was a supporter of a book that he published, and I was second level on it and stuff. I put a chunk of money into helping get that book started. Okay, I'm going back to mute.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Let's see here. I guess I'm gonna show you guys a cool little toy that I just got. I actually got several things here, and it kind of thinking. What's that?
I was just gonna say really quick.
Yeah.
Isn't Robert Llewellyn the guy who did Junkyard Challenge on British TV? Yes. That show was amazing.
Yes, that's in his repertoire. He's plays the robot himself on Red Dwarf, which I'm a big fan of, and that's kind of, he started his own YouTube channel, and then later on oh cat, and then he started Fully Charged show, and if you watch the early ones, and it just morphed and just grew like wildfire, and now it's immensely popular, and he had no idea of how big it would be. And he also had a series called Carpool as well. He doesn't do so much of that anymore, but he was doing it years before Seinfeld or anybody else was.
Cool. Okay. Let's see here. Trying to get to my menu here to switch to a different camera temporarily. Let's see. This one.
Oh, sorry, that was a Scrap Heap Challenge is what it's called.
Yeah. All right. So I'll show you in just a second what this thing actually looks like. So this is off of Amazon. It's got this little Bluetooth wireless remote control here, and you can see I can. Come on, there we go. So it's a little PT stand, can handle up to about a half a pound load, and you can swing this thing around. So it's kind of eliminates the problem of not having a wide enough view on your camera to be able to look at what it is you want to show. And so this thing will sit there and it'll.
I don't think we're seeing you.
Oh, here, let me let's see. Okay, let me fix that. I think if I spotlight me, that should keep me. Come on.
Yep, that's what you want to do.
Spotlight. There we go. Okay. It kicked a prompt up there. I had to answer.
Hey, Steve, just a quick note.
Yeah.
Spotlighted video is not recorded. I just saw a note on that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's curious.
Yeah, that's something we'll want to watch for our recording sessions.
Okay. Let me just, let's see here. What I'm curious is, I'm seeing on, you guys are just seeing a circle with SK in it, aren't you?
Yep.
It's like, why is that not showing?
Teams will do that if your connection gets really bad.
Well, okay. Let me go I'll go my original camera then, since I could my little local display, I'm seeing it, but yeah, it's not going out for some reason. I wonder if let's see, wait a second. That just break something?
Turn your camera off?
Well, yeah, I just wondered about that. It looks, let's see here. Let me try that.
Right next to my mute button is a camera mute button.
Yeah. Yeah, so there, okay.
There you are.
Oh, now we can't hear you.
Well,
There.
okay, well, everybody else was, let's see, your microphone is muted. Okay, that's on that computer, so it's okay. Okay, so now you're seeing me, right?
Right.
Okay, so you can see my nifty little remote here. And let's see, okay, yeah, so I'm pointing at the camera itself. So if I can hit the down button, and there she goes, and there's the up button. Okay, so maybe that was the problem. I wasn't selecting what I thought I was selecting. Yeah, you know what I should have done is I should have just got a mirror. See, I could just hold the mirror up and then you could see the camera. But if I switch back to, not that. Oh, wait.
That's the camera with the hum.
Yeah. I just realized that. So, okay. Yeah, I got to pick the right device here. Okay, so I'll switch back to this one. Give it a sec here. Wait for it. Wait for it. Come on. Come on. Keeps wanting to. Yeah, it's picking up Lloyd there. It's picking up sound from Lloyd. So, yeah, look at that. That's weird. This was working earlier when I was playing around with it.
There,
So
well,
there we
go.
go. Jeez. I tell you. Okay, so now you are okay. That's the laptop camera over there. So not that one. So that's the good one there. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna pick this little guy up here so you can see it. So this is what it looks like. It's kind of a cool little thing. It's got a standard 1/4 20 thread there. You can see there's the little knob there. You can tighten it down. This particular camera happens to have it's got a hinged fitting on it, but then in the bottom of the hinge, you can't see it on this side, but anyway, it's got a 1/4 20 stud that you can, or a socket, I mean, hole that you can run the standard tripod, and then the little guy has a 1/4 20, basically like a nut that you can mount this on top of any standard tripod, and it gives you the ability to have a remote control, and it's supposed to work up to about 25 feet or something, probably typical Bluetooth range, and it's got this little extendable antenna that you can use if you're further away, but it's got a pretty nice pace there. You can kind of see the rate that it moves. It gives you, it's not very fast. It's funny, in the specs they tell you how many radians per minute that it moves, and it's like radians per minute. Wow, that's a really helpful specification. I don't know about you, but I don't imagine angular motion in radians per minute. So, and then it's got this little kind of a scale thing around the base there, where you can kind of get a relative indication of how far it's turned, and it'll go. I think it said it'll go 230 degrees or something like that from the one extreme to the other. And
I wonder if there's a standard for the radians per minute for live video. There might be a standard maximum for not making people sick or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that, and I don't know, but this was like 50. I think it was about $55. So it's not super cheap, but it wasn't that expensive for what it got me, and it feels a little delicate. I mean, when this part here, you can see, they say, don't crank on it or anything because you'll break the gearbox, but you can see there's quite a bit of slop there in the gearbox, and this thing is a little more solid, so this doesn't move too much, but this rotation, but as long as you stay well within the weight limit of the unit, it's probably fine. And this is, webcam obviously is very light, but like I say, the max rating is only a half a pound. Their ads showed pictures of a standard 35 millimeter camera sitting on there, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe with no lens, because you're gonna get well above a half a pound pretty quick on a camera with any kind of big lens on the end of it. So obviously you'd have to go with a much larger tripod for that. But and then it also has a rechargeable battery. So there is it's got the power switch, and then you charge it with a little micro USB here up above, and then it can also power something locally underneath. So because you could plug a charger into that, and then you could plug a local device that needs power then into the socket. So but other than that, nothing else too special about it. This guy, I think, just runs. I haven't taken the battery compartment apart to see exactly what kind it runs on, but it's just got a little small thing here, so it could possibly be probably a button cell of some sort, or maybe a couple of little mini button cells. So
anyway. Is the remote the only way you can control it?
As far as I can tell, yeah, doesn't appear to be any kind of an interface or anything. That would be kind of slick, like I say, a cell phone app or something where you could actually drive this thing. But no, so it probably uses some proprietary protocol with this remote. I didn't find any detailed information about hacking into the controls of it. So
I was wondering if maybe through the USB.
It's they call it an out. It says out on the label, and I'm thinking that it may only be power. There may not be any data lines in that USB port. So don't know for sure, but I think it's not intended for anything other than powering a device. So you could probably plug just about any USB thing into it, and the only thing it's going to do is turn it on. So that's let's see. That is all I had. Anybody else got anything to share? Almost 11. So okay, well let me let's see here. I'm gonna go back to screen share here. Give it just a sec to come up. Oh. All right, come on.
Hey, Steve, I don't know if you're seeing this, but there are people raising their hands in the.
Oh, see, now that would be a good thing, a good reason to have a person off to the side watching stuff like that.
You mean like
okay.
I just did?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if somebody, I can't actually see that at the moment. So if you want to just, if you got some questions out there, please go ahead and read them out to me. That would be helpful. Is there did anybody actually put any questions into the chat, or they're just raising hands?
No questions in chat.
Okay.
The raised hand.
Yeah. It's probably the best thing is to oh, it looks like Colin, what, you got something there that you want to show?
Negative. I hit the wrong button.
Ah, okay. So does anybody else have anything that they want to share? Because I can jump out of this for a bit here if necessary.
Please deny me. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So anyway, I want to take a short break here. I'm going to run to the restroom, grab something to drink so that I don't get into a coughing fit on you guys and I don't have any water handy. So we will come back. Let's make it about 11:05 Pacific time, and we'll roll this thing off. So that's about 7 minutes or so. All right.
Hey, Greg, I love your progress on the arm. Looks good.
Thanks. Yeah, it's coming together.
Have you figured out your belt management and how you're gonna keep them all tensioned and all that junk?
Oh yeah. So what I came up with. See how well this shows up on the camera. So you see this little wheel. It's got a little idler. Sorry. It's got a little idler pulley in the middle, but that idler pulley is off center. Right? So
I wish I could figure out how to see your screen. All I can see is the slide.
Oh well, can you see me?
No.
The little thumbnails down along the bottom.
Oh, there. I got it. For some reason I was double clicking, which was turning it on and off so fast that it never turned on. Turns out you single click those little puppies and they work.
Oh, there you go.
So I got you now.
So this little idler is on an offset cam from these little wheels on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And the little pin that goes through the center of those wheels goes into a slot, not through a hole. So what I can do, and there's a little nub at the bottom. So what I can do is lift this up, rotate it, and in so doing, adjust the height of that little idler.
Nice.
In the middle there. So that's how I tension the belts that are between the axles, basically the joints, and then the belts that go to the motors. There's slots so that I can adjust the motors, move the motors.
Well, I guess the big thing then is finding a way to place those little idler pulleys all the way out, because some of you got a motor on the base, and then you're going all the way out through two joints to run the differential, right? So
right.
So keeping the tension through two joints, that's a lot of work.
Well, so because of this bend in the arm, right? I have to have at least one idler in this vicinity, right, to get around that corner. Now, it turns out that what I'm doing is putting effectively a passive idler, just a typical idler, right here, and then I have my adjustable idler right up there.
Is that because the adjustable idler wouldn't fit in the space that was available under that belt there?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
But at least I'm able to put all of my idlers are on the slack side of the belt.
Well, and is it still the slack side through all the arm's possible positions?
Well, usually the arm is going to be fighting gravity. So,
okay, so you're going to limit the range of motion of your second joint from the base in order to make sure that it stays on that side?
Well, so the range of motion of the elbow is 180 degrees. So it can go from this folded up position to fully extended. That's its range of motion.
Okay, right? I see.
And the elbow is, the shoulder is 90 degrees, a little over 90. So it goes from vertical to horizontal. So, with that, it's generally always going to be going from, this position effectively, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Out to here and out to there, down.
Yeah.
So that's its range of motion.
And for what you're doing, that's really all you need. So that works. So what we had to do on our arm was, in order to get around this, was we put extra pulleys that just ride. So if you look at your second joint away from the base, what do you call that? The elbow?
The elbow?
Yeah. So we put extra pulleys in the middle there between the two main drive pulleys, and then those pulleys were like double pulleys. So for the differential, there is one belt going from the base to the elbow pulley, and then the partner pulley to that pulley has another belt on it going from the elbow joint to the differential. Does that make sense?
That's correct. No, that's what I have.
No, your belt goes direct. All the way.
No.
Oh, I see. I didn't see that part before. Okay. So you're doing the same thing we're doing, but you're using these idler pulleys because you have that offset in your arm.
Exactly.
So really, you could rotate that all the way around more than 180 degrees if you wanted to.
Well,
it's just not necessarily a useful position to be in, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, cool.
My design, requirements or goals were to be able to pick things off the floor, right? And then be able to put them up on the coffee table. So that's the range of motion that I need.
Like a can, for example?
Maybe a pop can, for example, yes. a can of beans, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, keeping cans of beans off the floor is just a very useful thing, Greg.
There we go. Yeah.
Thank you for building a robot that can solve that problem for me.
And one other thing that I'm doing, the original design, so all of the joints are 8mm tubing, aluminum tubes for the shaft, and
Okay.
then the plan was in the center of that tube is to put the magnet for the rotation sensor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as I was discussing with some other folks, another one of my design constraints was there are going to be no motors hanging off the outside of the arm. You look at a lot of robot arm designs, and they look great, but they have these motors sticking out the sides, like growths. And I told myself, there's no way. Aesthetically, I don't like having the motors hang off the side. So then it got me thinking that I'm going to have those rotation sensors hanging off of the sides. I didn't like that idea. So what I've now developed is a little, I'm using GT2 belts, but 3mm wide. Okay, so little 3mm wide belt goes into a 3D printed pulley. That 3D printed pulley is going to be on the shaft here and right here, and then it's going to go to another pulley that's going to have the magnet on it. So the sensor is going to be on the inside of the arm.
Yeah, why not? That makes sense.
And another advantage I get from that, because my range of motion is only 180 degrees in the elbow and in the wrist, so the wrist is 180 degrees, I would be wasting half of the resolution of the sensor.
Smart man.
So,
yeah, okay.
So
that makes sense. So you can gear it up then and get the whole range out of the sensor. That's really good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's been my latest modeling and 3D printing. So I finally got that kind of finished up earlier in the week, and so now it's assembly time. I'm putting together this kit.
Right.
Kit from the Schumacher robot arm factory.
Yeah, when you make that available for sale, I'll have to buy one.
Well, the problem with the current version, there's no printed instructions.
But isn't that part of the fun? Like when you buy the computer and they send you dirt and tell you to smelt it.
Yeah.
That was the old joke anyway. It's a puzzle, right? It's an IQ challenge. If you're smart enough to figure out how to put the robot together, then you can have a robot.
Exactly. And so by having the belts the way I have them, every belt drive is a 2-stage reduction.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the belt to the wrist going through here. You got your companion pulleys there. Obviously, it's driving the big side, and the output is the small side driving the big side. So it's a 2-stage for everyone, and then for the shoulder, it's 2 stages right here.
Nice. And you said that those were servo motors, but those are stepper motors with the sensor that you're putting on it, or are they?
No, they're just steppers.
Okay, but they'll become servos when you close the loop with your on-joint sensor.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Let's get rolling on the discussion here. Just kind of a reminder. So the meeting will pretty much end with when the presentation is over. So we can all go out and get a little sunshine to sort of add some color to our pasty complexions. So feel free to do that at the end of this. So. I am going to go ahead and share my screen and hopefully, kind of nice if there was a. I don't know if there's a way to do this yet with Teams, but if there was a way that I could actually put my camera like on the corner of the slides or something. I don't know if anybody is aware of a way to do that, because sometimes it would be helpful.
Well, if you're watching on a
Mama, the camera.
if you're watching on a computer, we can still see your camera down in the bottom row.
Oh, down there in the corner. Okay. All right. So let's see. So okay, I think you are. I'm at least on my monitor computer here. I'm seeing, for some reason, all I'm seeing is a SK in a circle. I wonder why you're not seeing the camera. It's probably this blasted.
I can see your image on mine.
Huh. Okay. Okay. So it must just, maybe it's just me. All right. So anyway, let's we'll get rolling here. So anyway, this is a discussion. I'm not an expert on electric vehicles or internal combustion vehicles or anything like that, and I don't intend to be. And this is not a pissing contest about which is better, but there's definitely lots of debates out there. And but I wanted to just kind of touch on it because I think it's becoming more prominent, particularly as lots of choices are appearing on the close horizon. So, but just for fun, this was a kind of a cool little historical slide that I found that kind of shows electric vehicles dating way back. They're almost, let's see, 97, what's that, 100 and over 120, almost 125 years ago, when the first electric vehicles kind of showed up. And you can see some of these examples here in the two pictures that are there. And I see that's kind of the, on the right-hand picture there, I would say that's a predecessor to the Tesla supercharger. Some kind of interesting, this little bullet-shaped thing down here is kind of cool. Scottish aviation scamp, BMW i1, Ford EcoStar, and then of course the GM EV1, and Toyota RAV4 there in the mid-90s. And you can see this timeline, of course, is dated because there's obviously been a lot that's happened since '97. And I will include a bunch of links that I've been getting for all kinds of EV resources, including a YouTube video of who killed the EV, which was the video that was done about the EV1 and all the tragedy of the development and then the destruction of that car. So it's kind of an interesting watch. So encourage you to check out these resources. I'm probably not going to do any videos just because videos tend to be kind of difficult over this media. So I'll just let you watch those on your own. Here's a little bit more going back from the same kind of general starting point. A couple of additional examples of electric cars in there, and then this is kind of projecting all the way out to the 2040s, what might potentially be coming. So there's been a lot of innovation. The development of the lithium-ion battery was really kind of a major turning point for electric everything. Electric cars, of course, benefited from that. But things like radio-controlled toys of all sorts, flying vehicles, quadcopters, electric boats, electric cars, everything else, lithium-ion batteries was just a huge game changer for that technology, because all of a sudden now you had batteries that had enough power but yet were light enough that you could put them in things that fly and put them in things that drive, and you got okay life, time, but it just made things work. I'm hearing some background there. Somebody's probably got their microphone open. just check and make sure your microphones are muted. Here's a kind of another slide of the history of the modern electric car, and this is a little bit more recent, just starting in the, let's see, what is that, back in the General Motors EV1. So that would have been, let's see, that was what, in the mid 90s when that was when that vehicle was. Is that right? Am I reading that right? It says 1996, 2003. Yeah. And then some of the other things. Nissan Leaf, of course, came out in 2010. I happen to have one. I'll show you a picture of it here when we get to it. Tesla and Chevy Bolt, Chevy, and I want the discussion to stay kind of primarily around plug-in electric vehicles as opposed to hybrid vehicles, because there are a gazillion hybrid vehicles out there, and that's a kind of a different branch of the technology. Some of them have batteries big enough that they can be propelled exclusively on that battery for at least some distance, and that's a kind of a different way of applying the electric drive. So this is focused just mainly on plug-in cars that do not have internal combustion engine as a primary motive force. So I'm allowing the BMW i3 in there because it's a range extender for that vehicle. So it's primarily an electric car with a small gas engine, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. This is an interesting adoption curve that I found having to do with kind of, and this is product adoption curve. This is probably applicable to a lot of things in regards to new technologies. When something first comes out, you're going to have the people that are just really like, yeah, it's about time, and they run out. They don't care how much it costs. They got to have it, so they're going to run out. They're going to buy it, and then you've got your early majority there. So people that kind of see the practical value of something, and that's going to be kind of your biggest segment in the middle. And then and then there's people that are going to wait a little bit, and it's like, well, let's see how this goes for a little bit, and then finally maybe jump in. And then of course at the tail end, you've got the people that are just hanging on, like, well, it'll probably be cheaper and have more capabilities next year, so I think I'll just wait till then. And as with just about anything technology related, you could do that forever and never ever jump in. A good example is computers. It's kind of like, well, when's the best time to buy a computer? And well, when it can do what it needs, that you need it, what it can do for you, what you need done, and it's at a price that you're willing to pay to get it done. And so you jump in, and it may take you years to get there, or it may be something, it's like, I got to have this tool. You go out, you spend whatever it costs at the current time to get it. So anyway, I've got slides of each of the cars that I'm going to highlight here as we go. So they're in alphabetical order, so there's just not any particular preference in terms of one particular vehicle over another. But the Aptera is kind of one of the more interesting, maybe somewhat exotic entries that's supposed to be coming out. It's supposed to be pretty reasonable priced. Has solar panels. I don't know if you can see them in the hood there, and then other parts of the car would have solar panels on it. Supposedly, it's so aerodynamic and so light that it gets a very, very, it really just sips the electrons. And so this car touts the feature of not having to be plugged in at all, depending upon where you are. If you're someplace where it's very sunny, this thing is supposed to be able to just charge off the sun. And it's a newcomer. They're not out there yet. Time will tell if this will be a successful vehicle. See how many people go and buy it. Audi e-tron is a pretty cool. I happened to was at Costco a couple of weeks ago, and a fella pulled up in one of these. Very, very nice car. You can always tell an electric car if when one sneaks up behind you, I don't know how many people have had the experience, but the only thing that you hear at very close distance is possibly the whine of the controller and maybe the gravel crunching under the tires. Because other than that, electric cars pretty much make no other noises at very low velocities. And I would say in the neighborhood of, let's say, below 5 miles an hour, you drive an electric car on a smooth, clean surface, and you wouldn't even hear it coming at below 5 miles an hour. They're so quiet, except for the whine. Anybody?
Air conditioners.
It's only for style.
What's that?
That grill. Does it need a grill like that?
Yeah, it's interesting because like Tesla, for example, Nissan have chosen to make the front of the car very smooth so that it's not allowing, it's not catching airflow in the front of the vehicle. I mean, it doesn't need it for cooling purposes or anything like that, and it ends up being just adds drag. And Audi maybe is one of these companies that's a little slower with changing the style of their cars, because this probably looks a lot like one of their regular cars, one of their gas cars that they make, I'm guessing. So there's probably no real reason for it. I would say it looks like most of the grill is actually closed anyway. Looks like just below the logo there looks like the grills appear to be open. But that also this doesn't look like a particularly aerodynamically smooth design. That front end seems like it's got plenty of sources of drag, but maybe it's sufficient. It might be tolerable for the power that the thing has and the battery and the range that they're looking for, because all of those things do factor into that. By the way, if anybody has any comments, I'll try to pause between these. So if you have any comments or questions or anything that pop in, go ahead and just jump in.
I just want to say on the Aptera group, since this is being recorded, I'm not going to say very much because I don't want to get sued. But seriously, check those people out really carefully before you invest in them. They've been around a long time, many, many years, minimum 10 years. And I know at least 2 people who have lost money investing in that company. So just be aware. I love the car. It looks good. It's an interesting design. The idea of it being solar powered, the idea of it being based on an aircraft, they're all great. The company itself, not so crazy about it.
That's good advice in any realm, So yeah, thank you for doing that.
Right. Really is, yeah.
Yeah, it's so okay. We won't excuse me, we don't need to say any more about that. So yes. And by the way, I'm not endorsing any of these vehicles either, but I'm all I'm saying is this is what I have. And it's probably, I don't probably have every single one that's out there either, because there are so many of them. Some of them are coming, some of them are already available. So I'm just kind of throwing them out there for your interest and amusement. BMW i3. I had a coworker that I used to work with at Boeing that got one of these at an auction. It was kind of fascinating. He picked this thing up about it's been about 4 years ago, I think. Around I'm thinking, let's see, this is 2017. I think he bought it in either 2016 or 2017. His was a 2014 model with the range extender. Had been in an accident, had been totaled by the insurance company, and he picked it up for $14,000. That's $14,000. Now, if you go online and you look what these cars cost, and even used, you could probably pay upwards of 30, 35, or 40,000 or more for them, even in the used market. And it was, what he got was a steal. He's had, he let me drive it. We would go to lunch from time to time, and he'd let me drive this thing. So that was my first real taste of quite a bit of driving of an electric car, and it's very fun. It's got the dashboard panel thing is very cool, and it even had little games built into it for getting you to be more economical in your driving. His had the range extender in it, and there's both pluses and minuses to that.
we can talk a little bit about that. It's I believe it's a motorcycle engine from one of their BMW motorcycles, 3-cylinder, I think. But it periodically has to run itself. If you drive the car without ever going beyond the electric range, after a while it will decide that engine hasn't been run in a while, and it will just fire it up on you. And he said that happened a couple of times. And if you're outside the car, it actually makes quite a bit of noise. It's not bad from inside, but outside the car, it's kind of startles you when this thing starts up. And so it just runs itself just to sort of exercise and, lubricate itself internally and all of that. But
do you know where it is in the car?
Pardon me?
Do you know where that engine is in the car?
Yes, it's under the rear deck. So you open the trunk. This is like a typical hatchback, but you open up the hatchback, and there's a panel that you can lift in the floor of the back, and then you can see it. And then, of course, you can also access it from underneath for servicing purposes. So, yeah. So it's a pretty small engine to fit where it does. It has a gas tank. I don't recall where exactly that's located, but I'm guessing, they have to have a filler for that somewhere. So I think it's somewhere toward the back of the car. An interesting thing about these cars were originally produced in Southern California, and California has some really kind of bizarre rules about how cars have to be made and sold there. And so one of the rules was that the extended range, the gas-powered extended range, could not be more than the electric range. And so I think this car has 150-ish miles, 140-mile range, something like that. So the gas engine was purposely limited to that, even though the tank itself was actually big enough to probably give this thing at least 200, maybe even 250 miles of range just on gasoline. But in software, does this sound familiar? In software, they limited the range of that range extender to meet the rules that California had for, the federal rebate and for sales tax breaks and things of that sort. And my friend was he was always watching the forums to try to see if somebody had found a way to hack the software to allow you to take full advantage of what that range extender could do for you. So kind of a weird thing. It's an interesting looking car too. You look at this thing and you go, well, how do I know that's a BMW? Well, the only thing one of the things that kind of tells you that is that the little oval things on the front there, that's a kind of a typical style for BMW. But other than that, the car doesn't really look anything like any other BMW. It's a very unique looking vehicle. So any comments or questions come to mind about this one? Oh, it's got weird tires too, by the way. I don't know if anybody was aware of that. The rear tires are wider than the front tires. So that makes things a little bit different.
I generally really like the idea of the range extender, but aside from this, like randomly starting up thing. But just knowing that if it's in an it's one of the things that literally keeps me from buying an electric car is that concern that if there's an emergency and I've got to get somewhere, that I don't have time to recharge the thing and I don't have time to wait. The other thing that kind of strikes me though is somebody should make, or maybe they do make, maybe somebody knows about this, a quote range extender as a separate thing, otherwise known as, I guess, a genset, but something that's like designed to actually be installed into a car and live, somewhere in it. It would be cool to be able to have like a Tesla and then like put a small, emergency only gas powered generator, somewhere in the trunk or somewhere in a storage space for use, only in those rare occasions.
People have done stuff like that. You can actually find YouTube videos and other things about those kinds of projects. And yeah, there's ups and downs. It is extra weight. that you'd be carrying around with you. So, yeah, it'd be nice if this thing could be pretty compact. The more compact, the better. It certainly is something that can be done. And yeah, it's I mean, a quick charger. We haven't talked about those yet, but this particular guy uses the CCS standard, CCS1, I believe, quick charge standard, which can do probably 50 kilowatts, and the battery. Oh geez, what size is this? I think that it's a relatively small battery in this thing. I'm thinking it's 42 kilowatts or something like that. So you can quick charge this guy pretty much from empty to full in well under an hour. So yeah, depending on the nature of your emergency, your wife's having a baby and you got to get her to the hospital now. Okay, yeah, you probably don't even have that much time to charge your car, but quick charging is an option, and we can talk about infrastructure and that for supporting that. That's growing all the time, growing faster as
maybe you'll talk about the why they aren't doing battery swaps, or because I've never really understood why they went away from that one either.
We could, let's go ahead and just jump into that. So they're interesting. Perhaps some of you saw the Tesla video a number of years ago where they had a side-by-side camera view, a guy pulling into a gas station, the Tesla's concept for swapping their batteries, and they basically started a timer on both of them at the same time. And I don't recall if they finished at the same time or if the Tesla battery swap was actually slightly sooner, but it was very, very close. And there's a lot of stuff out there about the whole concept. People ask that question all the time. Why don't we just swap batteries? Well, there's no standard for the size and shape of them. So, Tesla has their own. They have different sizes of batteries in their cars. The BMW battery is different from the Nissan battery, which is different from the Chevy Bolt battery, which is different. So there's no standards for these things. And so swapping stations would have to be pretty specific to the type of vehicle. And it's we have grown up. All of us have grown up with the concept of taking our cars to a gas station, plugging a gas hose into it, fueling for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then being on our way. And that's how you fill a car up. And electric vehicles are kind of require a paradigm shift in that regard, because you can't fill an electric car up like that yet. It may come, batteries and such. Battery technology allows for that very, very fast charging. Right now, it's definitely tens of minutes minimum to put any feasible amount of electricity back into a car battery. Even with a Tesla supercharger, you're probably looking at 10-15 minutes or so minimum to get enough in there to make it worth doing it at that time, and then you can get you to the next one. So
years ago, there was an article in Popular Science, I think it was, where they were talking about at a service station, you would pull out these aluminum plates and replace them with clean aluminum plates, and that's how you would recharge your battery car.
Yeah,
That's
the
awesome.
aluminum air cell. Yeah. And now isn't Tesla's latest batteries are literally a structural part of the car's frame.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yes.
you're not swapping that out.
Yeah, and that is another good point. And most of the EV commercially produced EVs out there, that tends to be the case. I mean, the batteries are part of the structure of the car, and even making them that easily removable is a tricky deal. So apparently China actually has battery swap stations for some sort of vehicles. I don't recall which particular ones they are. There just isn't enough demand here for that, even though few people ask for it, but there's just not a sufficient demand that anybody is really jumping on that, going, yeah, let's roll this out across the country.
It's definitely
one of those things that, it sounds like a great idea if you don't drive an electric vehicle. It's like, well, I'm not going to buy an electric vehicle because I can't recharge my vehicle like I do my car. But, I drive an electric vehicle that's 2013. So I bought it used for $5,000. 2013 Nissan Leaf with 30,000 miles on it. And it gets, on a full charge, it only has a range of 90 miles. You'd think I'd have huge range anxiety with this vehicle and that I would need that sort of, I'm going to need to refill this really fast. But, it takes me 5 minutes to charge my car or less, really 5 seconds. I plug it in and I go in the house.
Yeah.
But, every morning when I start my day, I have a full car. My car is full. Every day when I leave my office, my car is full. And, once you start driving where every time I leave, my car is I have all my range back. You start realizing, 99% of the time you don't need to charge your car quickly.
Yeah. That's been my experience. The paradigm shift in the way that you own and operate a vehicle, a major shift. And so does your car have the quick charge port, Richard?
It does have it has the CHAdeMO port because it's Nissan, which is of course not typically the standard anymore. Like our Nissan dealer, which is about 12 miles from me, does have a CHAdeMO charger, which, if I, like when we remodeled our kitchen and I had my entire house really loaded into my garage so I couldn't charge at home. And Quince was at school, so I had I was driving 95 miles a day. I'd charge at the office, drive home, drive Quince to school the other side of town, get Amanda her coffee, then drive back to the office, and be at the low battery warnings, and if you took a little detour, or if there's road construction, then you definitely want I could stop and top up for 5 minutes and then keep going.
And Nissan and the Nissan dealers don't charge for their charging, so that is a free place you can go. Most of those kind of chargers you have to pay something. So definitely. We're in a rural area out here. We have the only charging station here that charges you money is the Tesla supercharger they put in at the hotel in Sequim. All the rest of them are all just community service ones. We have one right downtown. We have our office supplies one to the community. The local co-op supplies one to the community. Right. I like to use the Volta chargers, which are popping up in supermarkets and shopping malls, and they're free. So you go to South Center. There's 4 of them there. You plug in, you go hang out the malls, get some lunch. Got a couple of hours or so, and it puts it's a 6.6 kilowatt charger. So depending on the size of your battery, you can put a fair amount of range back in the car, and no cost. So and then Walgreen Drugs likes them. So there's a lot of Walgreens that have them as well.
So how many stations are at those places? Have you ever gotten to a place where you wanted to plug in but it's full?
Yeah, that happens. Especially at the mall, places, busier malls. I've found that the Walgreens tend to be less likely for that to happen, but and so it's a chance. Now apps will tell you, most of the apps for these different chargers, Volta works. You can go and it'll tell you how many of them are being used, whether any of them are available. So you can kind of, you don't have to go there and look. You can check it online via the app and then find out. One of the downsides, this is a little bit of a segue regarding that. I have about a dozen apps on my phone. This drives me crazy because there's all these different charging system networks out there, and every one of them has their own app, and they all work differently. They charge. They don't all charge a different way, but there's a bunch of different ways that they charge for their service. And the fact that you have to have all of these apps in order to be able to sort of cover yourself so that no matter where you go, you can use the charger that's there. It's a nuisance. It would be nice if somebody somehow could actually pull all of them together into one system. I mean, Electrify America does, they're trying. There's Charge Point, there's EVgo, oh boy, Shell has gotten into one now. Green Power, Green Point, remember what theirs is called. There's a whole bunch of these things, but it's a nuisance to have to kind of check across these. If you look up one of them, they're all full. Okay, well, let's see. Let's try this one and see if there's one of these. And so, yeah,
How often do you actually need to charge when you go to the mall, though? Yeah. See, the way I'm kind of silly this way. It's like, hey, it's free electricity. Right. Yeah, that's where it comes down to is, we definitely. I mean, I charge at the office because, I mean, I don't need to. I can have plenty of range to do the round trip and charge only at home.
Mm-hmm.
If I charge in Squim, that's half. I'm only paying half as much.
Right.
And there's definitely plenty of people in our office. We put in the charger in 2013. We put the charger in at our office, and since then we now have 5 electric. One's a Volt, so mostly electric cars of people that work in our building that aren't in my office, but just work elsewhere in the building, that have all bought electric cars because they know that they can get all of their electricity for free just by charging there.
There you go.
Subsidizing all that.
And that's, it's like could make retiring kind of like oh man, I'm gonna lose my free electricity here.
Yeah.
Boeing never quite got there, so I didn't never had that option. But a lot of people at Boeing though were driving Teslas, BMWs, and Leafs, probably the 3 most common vehicles that I saw.
Yeah, well, I definitely even counting for electricity, driving the Leaf. I mean, I have a long commute overall. And so we're rural here. I really can use 90 miles a day. And driving the electric vehicle, I do save about $150 a month in fuel.
Wow.
And that's with counting in the cost of electricity. And then I'm only paying for half my electricity most of the time.
Yeah.
The office.
So I have a question. How much does it cost to charge your car? I mean, if you charge it at home.
If it's completely flat, probably about $7.
On your electric bill?
Yeah. But it's almost never completely flat. So maybe $3.
I bought a Volkswagen e-Golf about a year ago. I have 2 teenagers, so we needed an extra car for local driving around. Now it's only got about a 65 mile range, so it's definitely not our primary vehicle, but for a getting around, the neighborhood, going to the store, going to the University of Washington from Shoreline, it was a great vehicle to buy. And a couple times I did let me see what the MPG equivalent is. Though what I did not factor in and what I was unaware of until I had to renew the tabs was the $250 charge because I'm not paying for road maintenance through a gas tab.
Yeah.
So
you have to factor that in.
I need to go back and recalculate that equivalent MPG. I haven't really wanted to because it doesn't look like as good a deal as I was originally thought it was.
Right.
Yeah, you pretty much I pay for a week of gas once a year.
Yeah. There's also
a month of gas once a year.
Our politicians are working on ways to get money from EV drivers too in various nefarious ways. They are they're talking about switching over to a per mile type of a thing. So, and I think they're actually thinking about going that way with all vehicles, as opposed to charging tax through the gasoline. Of course, I would love to see, would the gasoline tax just simply go away and they switch over to this other thing, or do they just add this other thing to it so that it, because how often does the government reduce taxes? When was the last time that ever happened?
If you're wanting to encourage driving less polluting vehicles.
Yeah, so
less locally polluting vehicles.
I don't know exactly what they have in mind with how they're doing this, because it seems to me like, I think if they're talking about putting a device in my car that's going to track when I'm driving and where I'm driving and things of that sort, it's like, no, wait a second, this is like a major privacy violation. It's none of their business, But they're trying to figure out ways to recover the revenue that they're going to gradually lose as more and more electric vehicles replace gas cars, and they don't get as much money from the gas tax. So
well, they're also running into a problem of, by law, the cars are supposed to get more efficient, so that they use less gas per mile.
Mm-hmm. yeah. So that compounds it.
Yeah. So you look at the Toyota Prius. It gets 50 miles a gallon in the city,
mm-hmm.
or more.
Or more, yeah.
And that's twice of what a similar gas car size gets.
Yeah.
So right there, the gas revenue for the Prius is just cut in half.
Right. Yeah. So they're kind of in a, I don't know if we call it a panic. It's probably not a panic yet, but they could definitely see the handwriting on the wall here, and they're trying to figure out, so what are we going to do in the next 5 to 10 years to keep the revenue stream up? So anyway, they'll find some way to get money from us one way or the other. I haven't.
Washington State is transferring researching going to a miles per hour tax. I was part of a research program for a year,
mm-hmm.
and I carried around a little device plugged into my OBD2 port for their use.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they're planning to do, because my car's got a built-in 2 mile an hour error in the speedometer. Because so I drive for an hour at 60 miles an hour, and I've actually only traveled 58 miles.
Well, I'm guessing that they're not looking. They're probably not so concerned about hyper accuracy as just getting some kind of meaningful data. But yeah, we'll see what.
I think they're looking at some system that can do it with GPS.
Yeah.
The Prius, they charge an extra $75 on your tabs.
Yeah.
I found that out the hard way.
So, speaking of data collection, that reminds me that one of the other nice things about electric cars is that they are kind of inherently fly-by-wire. I mean, not necessarily completely, but they're a lot closer than a gas vehicle is. So, circling back to the topic of the group, they're a little bit easier to convert into robots.
Oh yeah. The only thing to consider though is a 4,000-pound robot can be kind of scary, So. How many? Speaking of, okay, we'll just do a brief segue into the autonomous driving thing. How many people have seen the video online of that dumb rich kid? He's like 25, who sits in his back seat with his foot on the steering wheel between the seats. He gets arrested. They impound his car. He just gets out of jail, pays bail, whatever, goes and buys another one. The guy's got so much money, he doesn't know what to do with himself. And it's like, well, how many times is he going to do this? I mean, he's basically using for the most part, using the auto drive of the car, because how well could you drive your car with 1 foot from the back seat? The car has obviously got to be doing most of the work.
I'm okay with this. He hasn't caused an accident yet doing it. We're getting a lot more Teslas into the auction market that way.
Well, that's funny, and I appreciate the humor of it, but the Tesla self-driving system is not fully rated yet. I don't think we have any figures yet.
It is definitely not safe.
Yeah, and I don't think we have any figures yet saying whether or not it's safer than a human being. That, for me, that's the key. I mean, I don't care if it's quote safe or quote not safe. What I care about is it safer than a human? And it might actually be close, right? At this point,
I would expect it to be closer, probably better than a lot of
than a human.
If you're the sort of person that's willing to do that in a Tesla, you're the sort of person that's willing to do some other really stupid stuff in a conventional vehicle.
Well, all I'm saying is if we're at a point where the Tesla self-driving system is safer than a human being, then I have no problem with the guy driving, the car around that way. He's no more likely than your average drunk texting while he's driving, yelling at his kids, daydreaming about his girlfriend guy who's driving down the road, not paying attention to what's going on, or just driving angry or whatever, or half asleep. Would I rather have somebody who's dead tired drive their Tesla directly, or go sleep in the back with their foot propped on the steering wheel? It's probably the latter.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, under normal circumstances, the self-driving is safer than you driving itself, but it's the exceptions that get you into trouble.
Right.
Like my prime example is a few months ago, I was traveling up a hill. The speed limit's 35. There was this guy in a silver Ram pickup in the other lane. He came up behind me fast, got real close, jumped into the other lane, and then as soon as he cleared my bumper, which was only by about a foot or two, he jumped into my lane to keep going, trying to race up the hill, and there was cars all over the place. And would a self-driving car anticipate that this jerk was going to pull that maneuver?
Yeah. No way.
Well, hold on now. I hear what you're saying, and I agree. And it is the edge cases that get you. And a human being combined with the Tesla self-driving might be better. But again, I just want to point out the issue here is, on average, overall, is it safer or less safe than a human being? And then I also want to point out that the point is that Tesla is getting more data than any other network, because they're basically taking all that data in, and they're, if they have an edge case where it, like underruns a truck trailer or something like that, they can go out there and say, hey, show us every example of a Tesla approaching a tractor trailer, and then retrain their system with that new data in order to update it. So I have no doubt that they're going to be way safer than a human being. I'm just to reiterate, my point is, it doesn't have to be totally safe. It just has to be safer than a human being.
Yeah. More data is always better. If you have more inputs, and that input can be someone sitting in the driver's seat, some controller sitting somewhere else watching it, live camera feeds.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways you can make things safer than they are now. But I see a lot of really dumb drivers in conventional vehicles that I am much less comfortable being around.
But what happens when something goes wrong?
With people being drunk?
No, what if somebody's drunk and their car is going down, self-driving itself down the road, and something in that system fails. I watch a show all the time called Disasters in the Sky, where, it's about airplanes, and big jet airliners. And when something fails in that jet, the pilot has to take over. If the person's drunk, they can't take over.
Right. and definitely, I mean, that is how it's supposed to work. Is, you know, the Tesla self-driving, if you're using that, you know, is supposed to look for the seatbelt to be fastened and the weight to be on the front seat, and that there's, you know, hands are on the steering wheel, which is why you have to have your feet on the steering wheel if you're sitting in the back. You know, there's systems in place to try to make sure that there's someone sitting there that can take over if there's a problem. You know, if it gets into a situation it's not supposed to be in, it is supposed to alert the driver and have them take over. You know, similar to your jet airliner.
But
Yeah,
there's
but
always ways to defeat
if the
that.
driver's asleep, then he has to wake up,
Yeah.
Right.
reorient himself, and figure out what's going on. By that time,
Yep. It's too
Right,
late.
and that's where it comes down to. You know, we can't expect it to be 100% safe, but you know, if that driver was going to fall asleep behind the wheel anyway, having any sort of autonomous thing in there is safer than having just that driver there on his own.
Sure.
that's true.
Well, one of the aspects of self-driving cars is, you know, people tend to get distracted very easily, even behind the wheel of a car. Self-driving car does not.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So there's definitely advantages to having a technology working for you that cannot be distracted, does not get tired, is and has better visibility even than you do, because that car can be aware of everything 360 degrees all the time, not just when you happen to look to the left or look to the right or whatever, or hit your rear, look in your rearview mirror, but the car is looking at all of those things all the time. So it isn't surprised by something coming at you from the side. It'll see that coming long before it happens. The ability of a car to avoid getting T-boned that has the autonomous technology is probably way greater than it is for us, because we might only see, we might catch something out of the corner of our eye as it's coming towards us, but it's going to be too close to stop or speed up to get out of its way.
Yeah, definitely. The real challenge comes to when you get to the situations that you are going to hit something. Who becomes the responsible party when your car decides that it's safer to hit this vehicle versus that pedestrian?
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of legal questions involved in that.
Yeah.
Like who's responsible? Is it the programmer? Is it the manufacturer of the car? Is it the driver? Is it, the state that decided to legalize self-driving cars? Did they bear responsibility? And honestly, every time I think about lawyers or what goes on in courtrooms, I start getting sick to my stomach. So I try really hard not to think about all of that. The one thing I wanted to comment, some of you guys were talking about the advantages of the self-driving car. Of course, there's also disadvantages, things that a human being would take one glance at and know immediately that this is some like really weird edge case that the car probably has never seen. And the car won't see it, right? Like, somebody's doing a cosplay of a segment of road and they're crossing the street. That was a dumb example, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt in my mind that the combination of a well-trained self-driving car that never loses focus and never, loses attention, and a human being is definitely the best of both worlds. My concern remains that people are only looking at human responsibility and at how a human being could make it, even better than it is. And they're not looking at baseline overall, is just a self-driving car a better driver on average than just a human being on average, because that's the comparison we should be thinking about.
I think there probably is
even more as you get more self-driving cars on the road. At some point, you're going to hit the tipping point where more than half the cars can self-drive.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the edge cases are the people that are just being just people.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you remember the movie I, Robot, he got in trouble because he took his car off self-driving mode.
Right.
Right. Well, let's keep rolling here as we're coming up on noon. So, Chevy Bolt, Chevy made that interesting naming thing where they've got the Volt with a V and the Bolt with a B. And of course, the Volt with a V is a hybrid, so it has a gas engine and a smaller battery. The Bolt actually is pure electric. So had a chance. I had a former coworker that had one of these, so I had opportunity to drive one of these as well, and they're fun. You know, it was a cool car. When I was looking for mine, this was just a little on the small side for me, looking for something with a little more inside room. So anyway, we didn't end up getting one of those. Then you get to these kind of things.
I got the Leaf for cheap because my boss bought a Bolt.
Ah, there we go.
He since sold it and bought a Tesla.
So you know, you've got the one of the things about electric cars that's been kind of from the beginning is it seems like the manufacturers seem to want to make them look distinguished, to make them look different from regular cars. And you know, Fiat is kind of no exception to this, although they do have gas-powered cars that look a lot like this one. But it's kind of an interesting looking little thing. You know, again, it's you can see it's just a two-door. That back seat's probably pretty tight quarters, except maybe for some couple of smaller kids. The Mach-E, Mustang Mach-E. There's some pretty cool YouTube videos. I think in the document that I'll post along with this presentation, there's a YouTube video about just taking one of these guys out for a ride and kind of reviewing it. And the general consensus that I've gotten from the forums and other such about this car is that it's not really a Mustang. And that's not even so much because of the way it drives, but because of the way it looks. It doesn't actually look a lot like that classic Mustang muscle car. It's got a few of the basic features of it, but it's supposed to be pretty fun. It's, you know, you got an electric version of a car that's always been known as being a performance car. And so, you know, you compare it to like a Shelby or something like that. And of course, unlike a performance Mustang, this guy doesn't make any noise. You know, I mean, one of the reasons why people probably like those Mustangs is because you fire one of those up and everybody around you knows what you got, you know, and this car doesn't make any noise. So you kind of have to give that up.
It is a Ford, so they probably don't. They probably fake the noise already. The normal Ford Mustang has simulated engine noises in the cabin, and Ford F-150 and F-150 pickups have simulate, or if you like the Ford Raptor, those all have simulated engine noise in the cabin because otherwise their engine is more efficient and therefore quieter.
Yeah,
they're running at typically just one power band to get more efficiency, and to give that feel that the people are wanting, they all simulated engine noise. And so, you know, I'm sure it's an option probably in the Mach-E to turn on simulated engine noise.
Yeah, right.
When I recently heard about this idea of the safety problem with electric cars, pedestrians don't hear them. And so whoever it was talking about some idea of having them make a fake noise. And I was thinking, I don't know if you've seen this. I don't remember how I originally heard about it. Probably on the radio. It's an audio file that's kind of ring ding 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 ding.
Crazy Frog.
Right. So imagine having that as your car sound.
No, thank you.
Well, there's a kit you can get for the Model 3 that simulates engine sounds, and there's two sound boxes you mount under the rear bumper that simulate it and makes the engine sound when you run the accelerator.
Oh, jeez. You know, realistically, now I've made some observation. Okay, so I stand on the side of the road. There's people in my neighborhood that have Teslas and other BMWs, and if they're going 15 or 20 miles an hour, you can hear them. A car going, it doesn't matter what kind of car it is, just because the engine isn't making any noise, it doesn't mean the rest of the car is silent. I mean, the only way these cars can sneak up on you is they got to be going really slow. And I think it's overblown. I think the concern is overblown.
Yeah, definitely. On my Nissan Leaf, the car is quiet, but the air handling for climate control is a monster. Just running all that compressor and fan off the electric motor is still a lot of noise at those speeds.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll take a look at this guy here. So this guy isn't out yet, but General Motors announced that this is coming, I think, next year, 22. I think when they're planning to roll it out. Again, talk about cars having a very distinct appearance. I mean, this thing doesn't look like anything that Cadillac has had before. But there you go. Probably going to be
Almost
pretty.
looks like there's a piece missing.
Could be. And then of course you've got this thing, and there's some. I think I've got a YouTube video of a guy kind of giving a review of this. This thing is just crazy. Turning this thing into an electric vehicle is pretty wild. It's it is what it is, I guess. What can I say?
I really appreciate finally getting large vehicles as electric vehicles. And it's really kind of the vehicles that were being made into electric vehicles were the Fiats.
Oh yeah.
Like something like the BMW i3, the Mitsubishi iMEV. They're just these really compact commuter cars.
Right.
It's like it couldn't get a lot of battery in them. They're practical for commuting, but not so practical when you have family.
This is actually a really interesting point. I don't know if we have time to just let me throw this out there really quick. Regenerative braking works better if you have a heavier, bigger vehicle, right? So it always has felt to me like a big, huge SUV like a Hummer ought to benefit more from being converted to electric or from being converted to hybrid than a tiny little Fiat would. But then I've seen big electric vehicles, and it doesn't seem like they really gain that much. So I'm guessing that the regenerative braking isn't that big of a savings over just being more airflow efficient or something.
Think about the physics behind that. So the bigger, heavier vehicle is going to require more energy to accelerate. And yes, you will get more back from the regen, but you're going to have to put more energy into getting that vehicle going faster. So as far as benefit, the best benefit that I can see along the lines of what you're talking about is like this gravel company that made these big giant electric trucks. They drive up this mountain empty, fill up with rocks at the top of the mountain, and then they would regen down the hill to recharge themselves.
I love it.
That actually works. Apparently, there's enough of an altitude difference that the kinetic energy that truck. These are big trucks. These are these big giant trucks, I guess, that they're doing this with. But imagine a vehicle like this, same kind of a thing. If you could get this thing up the hill and then load it up at the top of the hill with about 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 pounds of cargo, and then roll it back down the hill. But there's no free lunch. I mean,
in that situation, they needed the rocks to be down. Otherwise, you'd have to have something else carting them back up.
You'd have to. Yeah, this was some kind of like a gravel quarry or something where they needed to get the stuff from up above down below, and somebody came up with this idea. Well, why don't we try this and see if it works? Go ahead and Google that on the internet. It's I'm thinking it's like rock trucks, regenerative braking or something. I don't remember exactly, but you should be able to find it out there. It's really amazing, and it works, but only because the truck can go up the hill empty and come down full. That's the only reason that actually works. So all right, well let's just kind of keep rolling here. If we're only on the H's, so Hyundai Kona. Anybody have one of these, by the way?
No.
Nobody out there? Yeah, so this is kind of, you know, some of the one of the more, you know, the sort of the mid entry level type electric vehicles that apparently, you know, does pretty good. There's lots of YouTube videos about people playing around with these things. It's well, it is what it is. And then the Ionic 5, or excuse me, Ionic 5. So I kind of like the way this one looks. It's got a, you know, again, it's kind of interesting. They've all, you know, it's like the grill thing. So these guys here, there's no grill on the front of this one, just a little emblem up there. But then they added the grill on the front of there for whatever reason.
I wonder if they can share body panels with gas cars.
Yeah, I think companies that build both kinds of vehicles seem to be sort of trying to do that. You know, Tesla, because Tesla doesn't make anything but electric cars, they just designed the whole thing from the ground up. But it's like everybody else seems to have sort of adapted their manufacturing to make their cars, and so there's pluses and there's minuses to doing that. And Kia Niro, another one very very similar to the let's see, the Kona, in terms of the sort of the body shape and the general size capacity. I think the range is kind of similar as well. And then the Soul, which I think I've ran. Let's see, yeah, okay, I did see one of these. Yeah, it says e-Soul. So yeah, so I happened to come up behind one of these things here the other day. If you like the car, it kind of looks, it's a little boxy looking for me, but you know, if you're looking for you like that style, it'll probably do you. The Lucid Air. So this is there's some really interesting YouTube videos. The president of the company is going and driving one of these things around San Francisco, and you know, stopping and chatting with people, and you know, that's this will be interesting to see how it does. You know, I mean, I think it's pretty expensive. He's targeted the luxury electric car market with this thing, and so I'm thinking that it's like, is it 100K or 110 or something? You know, it's up there. It's up there a ways in terms of the cost. So he's shooting for the kind of the upper end of the Tesla market. And I think eventually they plan to build less expensive vehicles, but this is what they're starting out with, and I guess time will tell, as the case with all of the manufacturers of these vehicles. You know, who's gonna actually be coming out the other end when all is said and done.
Just for your information, for anybody that wants to buy one, the Microsoft store at University Village is being replaced by a Lucid Motors store.
Oh, interesting. Be an opportunity to go take a look at one.
Yeah.
Maybe even test drive one if they're. Now I'm going to take a guess. I don't know how the door handles on this one work, but those look a lot like the Tesla electric retracting and extending ones. I don't know if anybody knows for sure if that's what these do. I would guess they do, just because given the luxury level of the car would make sense. You know, Model 3, they did this thing where you push one end of the handle in, and then the other end pops out, and it's got a little pivot in the middle, which seems like a good idea. You know, if you lose your 12-volt battery, you know, we could talk briefly. Well, actually, I'm gonna get to that here in a bit. So let's go ahead and keep going. So Mercedes EQS. This is a pretty nice looking car. They this is, you know, and they're pretty proud. It seemed to be pretty proud of it as well. So we'll see how it does. You know, but it's got a nice style to it. Again, I think this is a upper end luxury targeted car, so it's very fancy interior, lots of noise suppression, and all the fancy gadgets that you'd expect on a high-end car. The Mini Cooper, they've these ones here, you know, you can see, okay, so Mini obviously recognized the value of let's just put an electric drivetrain in what we already built, you know. So this thing looks just like any other Mini Cooper. Possible exception may be the grill in the front here, not having a, but I'm guessing that the standard Mini probably has a grill here, and all they did was just made a solid panel, pop it in there, and hey, call her done, So, and finally we get there, the Nissan Leaf. So what I'm calling the first gen Nissan Leaf and the second generation Nissan Leaf. So, so this is roughly what you have then, Richard, right? Yeah. So this was.
It looks exactly like that one. Same color.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So these did not change from 2011 and 2017 in terms of the style. They pretty much all looked the same. And then 2018, Nissan decided, okay, we need to kind of retool the appearance of the car. And so then that's when they came out with this. And so this store showed up in 2018, 150-mile range with a larger 40 kilowatt battery. And then 2019, which is the year that I have, they came out with put a 62 kilowatt battery in this car, which gives it a 220-ish mile range. So these are, so I think this one, the original had a 20 or 22 kilowatt battery. Is that what yours has? Yeah. So smallest battery. And then did they have a 30 something, like a 32, or did they go? Seems like they had
it got released. There's a 32 available in the UK or in the EU.
Yeah, that's right.
It was never released here. And there is definitely, if you really want to spend a lot of money on a cheap car, you could definitely swap the battery out. So that there is a kit to swap the 2019 battery into the Gen 1s and reprogram the controller so that your dash all works and shows an appropriate range.
Okay.
But
yeah.
There is someone selling another Gen 1 locally here for 7,000 with under 20,000 miles on it or something.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to spend a lot of money on repairing a Gen 1.
Yeah.
Because they're so cheap right now. There are so many of them that are on the road that people have upgraded to Teslas or a larger range. If you just need a commuter car, they're really cheap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my car. That's my daughter there in the driver's seat. This was in Portland. So we did a road trip. We've done actually several road trips with it between Seattle and Portland. There's a quick charger in Chehalis that we like to use because there's a gluten-free everything restaurant there. And so we will go and grab takeout from the gluten-free place, go back to the quick charger, and then we just sit in our car and we enjoy our food while the car feeds. Works out pretty well for us. You can see I put a bike rack on the back of this thing. These are electric bicycles, by the way. What else, right? So we took electric bicycles with us and rode around Portland, and had a great time. And so this is so this is my baby. So it's coming up on a year. So June, the end of June will be a year for me. So then I'll get the sticker shock of renewing my tabs, which I'm expecting is going to be excruciatingly painful. So I'm gonna show you one thing that I did run into with my car, and we haven't broached this subject yet, but all electric cars have a 12-volt lead acid battery in them. And that battery is the same kind of battery as you'll find in any standard car. And what it does is it brings everything else up, but it also powers things that need to be powered when the car is switched off. So your cellular modem in there to allow you to get remote battery status and other things. All of the alarm system and all the standard 12-volt stuff. Yeah. And and of course the 12 volts also runs your power windows, your radio, your heated seats if you have them, your heated steering wheel if you have it. Any 12 volt accessory that's in the car. And my battery died at less than 2 years, my 12 volt battery. And fortunately it was replaced under warranty, but the dealer had to keep the car overnight and put it on his own charger to prove to himself what I was telling him was one of the cells died. The battery would drop immediately from 12 volts to 10 volts if you put any kind of a load on it. And I said, well, one of the 2-volt cells has failed on this. well, we got to check it with our equipment and be sure. And, well, guess what? It was exactly the problem. They put a new battery in it and things are fine. But that got me to thinking and got me to looking and digging into this a little bit. And it turns out that I don't know whether other cars are built like this, but the Nissan does not charge the 12-volt battery unless the car is actually switched on. You could put a voltmeter on that battery and it'll drop down to its normal resting voltage. As soon as you switch the power to the car on, it goes up to about 14 volts. It says, yeah, it's being charged. When you plug in the charger, the wall charger, you can see my J1772 plugged in here. That does not charge the 12-volt battery. It doesn't get a charge when the big battery gets charged. Why, I don't know, but that's the way these cars are designed. So even here in 2019, they still haven't done anything about that. So to alleviate that problem, I added this little just little cable with the ring terminals on the battery, and then I just fished it out of the charge port access compartment on the front of the car, and then it's just got a little SEA 12-volt power connector here that I then plug into a trickle charger I have sitting next to my car. So whenever I want to do it, I can just plug that in, and that will trickle charge the 12-volt battery while the big battery is being charged.
So
and then
Stephen,
just for fun. Well, just one more thing, and then I'll go ahead and let you talk there. So this little module is a Bluetooth 12-volt monitor that you can buy these and put them on any car, any vehicle, and it will Bluetooth to an app on your phone, and it'll tell you the status of your battery, and it'll allow you to remotely read the 12-volt battery state. So that was a little addition that I put on that it's kind of fun. So I heard somebody had a comment.
Well, no, I just wanted to say that's really cool. You've drastically improved the operational, mode of the car, and thereby completely voided your warranty on the 12-volt battery and probably the car entirely, right? I'm just joking.
No, because I was a little bit concerned about, well, does it matter whether you have the thing hooked up? I don't turn the car on with the battery charger plugged in, because now you've got the battery charger feeding from one side, the charger in the car feeding from the other side. That could cause a conflict. I don't know if it would cause a bad conflict, but I just don't do that. When I go out to drive, I just go and first thing I do is I unplug everything from the wall and then go in, get in the car, turn it on, and drive away. So, It seems to me that it would have been a pretty simple thing for them to just put a little 12-volt trickle charger hanging off of the 120-volt side of the J1772 plug, so that when you plug the car into the wall to charge the big battery, it would just put a trickle on the other one.
Why would you? Assuming you're plugging in, whenever you're plugging in your car, the 12-volt battery should be fully charged whenever you're plugging in, because you would have just stopped your car and it would have been fully charged.
Right. And if I sit now, I'm retired, so I'm not commuting daily.
Right.
I don't drive my car every day. Sometimes it can sit for 3 or 4 days sometimes, and I don't touch it. And then I get in. I might drive 3 miles to the store and home. Well, you don't get a heck of a lot of charging on a little short drive like that. So not everybody would have this problem, but for somebody like me, where I'm not driving it consistently.
That's the same problem you'd have on an internal combustion engine in that same situation.
Yeah. And I have my gas cars sit parked outside my garage, and I've had the batteries in those things go dead because this thing is so much more fun to drive that I choose to drive this one and I forget about the others. Well, now I have to purposely get in them at least once or twice a week and drive them just so that it charges the battery and it uses some gas and does that. So
but it's an interesting point that in this day and age, they're still not managing that 12-volt battery when they certainly could.
Right.
It's like they're pretending to be an old gas car as opposed to, taking this under the umbrella of improvements that have been made on electric cars.
Right. And that's Nissan is a Japanese company. Those folks, their mentality. I mean, look at Toyota. Toyota has finally decided, maybe we ought to make an electric car. And they've been in there before because you have the RAV4 from a bunch of years ago, but it's like they sort of jumped into it and they jumped out of it, and I think sometimes that they think in terms of their gas cars and how they do their design, and then
the whole J1772 standard or the CHAdeMO fast charge standard, as soon as your main traction battery is charged, they just there is no power there anymore.
Right.
So it's you're for 99.99% some large percentage of people, when they're plugging in their car to charge it, the 12-volt battery is fully charged.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time that's self-drained enough, their traction battery is fully charged and the AC's been taken away. So there is no power there to charge the 12-volt battery then. So there isn't really a good reason to spend the money to put another charge controller for the 12-volt battery off of that line. I mean, for your situation, you could solve it. Just turn on the climate control timers in the Nissan and have it, heat up your car to 70 degrees every morning. Just take 10 watts of power or something, or however much it is depending on where you park, to turn on the heater, run the heater, and that will charge your battery.
Oh yeah, that's true. That would be Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see. Yeah. So that's a okay. So that's a way to get kind of forces it to.
Yeah. You can just tell the car, I want to turn my car. I mean, we do that here because Quincy school starts at 7:30 in the morning and it's below freezing for a good portion of that during the winter or in summer. And so you just tell the car that at 7:20 in the morning, I want my car to be 72 degrees in it. It turns the car on automatically and heats all the car up based off the 110 or 240 volt AC input, and charges the 12-volt battery at that same time too, because the car is all on.
Well, I will have to. I hadn't thought about doing that. That's a pretty interesting. Yeah.
So Steve, when your battery went dead, could you move the car in any way?
No, could not start it. I was able to get it started by hooking a battery charger up to the 12-volt battery to hold it, with enough amps to hold it to allow the car to get itself going. And then once it was started, then you can take that off and it'll stay going just like a regular ICE car. It doesn't need the power from that battery once it's running to stay running, but to get started, you got to have it. And
isn't that mind-blowing that in this day and age you still have to jump start an electric car?
It's pretty crazy.
I've got the Prius. When the battery's dead, you can't move it. You can't put the thing. You can't take it out of park. It's stuck.
Oh, geez.
And so you got a 2,000-pound brick.
Well, do you have one of those little portable lithium battery jump batteries?
I do have one of those, but the battery's in the back of the car, and there's a place you can dump start from in under the hood, but you got to use a 12-volt source. It can't be one of those little jump start things. And it can't be a switch mode power supply to do it. It's got to be a DC source.
Wow.
It won't recognize them.
Weird. Okay.
And the reason those batteries are still lead acid is because lithium batteries have a big problem with cold temperatures.
Yeah.
You get down to freezing and you start to have problems, but a lead acid will still work below zero. Not as well, but it still will. That's why they still use the lead acid batteries.
Yeah. And they're cheap, it's very well-defined technology, and it's kind of like, okay, well, it works. It ain't broke, so don't
your
fix
failure mode was the failure mode of a lead acid battery.
Yeah.
And, they usually don't fail. And if they do, it's usually within the warranty period and you just swap it.
Yeah.
Sometimes getting someone to understand that's silly and takes some work, but.
Yeah, you just got the 1 in 1,000 batteries and decided to bit the shit early.
Right.
And I don't know if you know this, but the first generation of Leaf, when you got the upgraded infotainment package, had a solar panel in the rear spoiler. That solar panel's sole job was to keep the car powered, keep the 12-volt powered to help compensate for the extra load of the basically it would be the cell phone that would allow the car to connect to the internet wherever it was.
Right. Yeah, and that they must have decided that they didn't need that anymore. Save a few pounds, save a few bucks or something, and they took that out of there. So,
well, it was only on the car with the advanced infotainment system. You got the base model, you didn't get that.
Ah, okay.
The SV trim.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just keep chucking there. If anybody needs to drop out, feel free. Let's see, the Nissan actually makes an electric minivan. It's like, I don't know why it seems to be taking the others a little while to jump into this, but I've been amazed at how many of these I've seen too. There's actually they kind of pop up all over the place. But it's definitely a mini van. This is, if you're looking at a van that's got like, even as big as a Sienna or a Honda, whatever, you're gonna, Odyssey, you're gonna see, they're much bigger than this guy, but it's a cute little thing.
The NV200 is definitely designed as your urban delivery vehicle.
Yes. This is a cool little thing. Now there's a video in there showing this thing in action. This was some sort of a concept vehicle. They're not making it, but it was kind of I think that Nissan may have sort of missed their calling in making a sort of an SUV style version of the Leaf based upon this, because this has slightly higher ground clearance, I think, and it's got different tires and a more robust suspension system and some other things. This particular vehicle is equipped with at the back end of it is a kind of like an emergency control center. So it's got electronics, computers, monitors and displays. It can act as a local cell system and a variety of things. And so this is a kind of a nifty video that I think is in the list that you can watch about this thing. Kind of a cool idea. The Taycan, this is, of course, this again is your a luxury sports car. So this is at the upper end. Bill Gates has one of these among probably a few of those other celebrities and high, folks that just have way too much money and got to have the latest toys. Pretty cool looking car, but definitely probably out of most people, certainly out of the average person's price range. Rivian electric pickup trucks. Electric pickup trucks I think are going to start really showing up, but that's a very different kind of a market. A pickup truck is probably, most people buy pickup trucks to be able to haul stuff, and so, how well an electric truck can do that is going to be a real tell of how well these guys are going to be accepted and used. I mean, there's probably a few people out there that buy the trucks because they like to be seen driving around in a truck. But, I don't know about you, but I see most trucks, they're used. They're utility vehicles. People buy them, particularly businesses. They buy them with a specific functional purpose in mind. They're not just buying it because they like trucks. So, there's a
very different place than we live, Steve.
Yeah. Well, I see, there's mostly SUVs in my neck of the woods here, Federal Way, but there's a few trucks hiding out there. But this is a kind of an interesting one. I think this is good. This is going to be one of the early ones that may be actually available. We'll see, but I think it's close. So, first generation. Okay, so first generation Tesla Roadster. So those of you that have been with the SRS for quite a number of years probably may remember Tom and Kathy Saxton. They had one of these, and it showed up at some of the electric drive week events, and they gave me a ride in this thing one time. I recall that it had a very noisy gearbox. So this thing, I think this had a 2-speed gearbox. So this was back at the very beginning before Tesla figured out that it didn't make sense to put a gearbox in an electric car. This one had one, and it was a kind of a noisy thing. It was pretty amazing performance. It was you sit way down in this, so like a typical sports car, you kind of climb into it and your feet stretch way out in front of you, and you are low down in this car. But pretty cool car, and they enjoyed it. They sold it to some guy in Germany. He came, got it. He came, saw it here in the States, and then they shipped it to him from here. Crazy, but they sold it, and then they got a Model X. So they still have. Let's see, what do they have? They have a Leaf. They have Nissan Leaf, like yours, Richard, and then they have a RAV4, and then they've got their Model X.
Yeah. The fun thing about driving there, because I did take a drive in there, I drove their Roadster once during an SRS thing. It's it's got really freaking wide tires for traction and no power steering.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
To parallel park, trying to parallel park the thing over there, Renton Tech, and you've got you're just cranking on the itty bitty little steering wheel to try to drag these huge fat wide tires across the concrete.
Yeah. So Model S, what can I say? Luxury sedan, very nice cars, fun to ride in, fun to drive. They're getting, they're still pretty expensive, relatively speaking, but nice car. Model 3, which of course is, ended up being a tad more expensive when it first showed up than Tesla was promising. But I've heard that these things, what people end up driving home with is something more on the order of 50,000 plus, rather than the 35 that they start out at. And you start realizing what you actually get for 35K, and you go, oh, I want something a little better than that. So, but again, nice car, nice ride. Had a chance to ride in one of these as well. They're a fun car. And then there's the Model X with the gull wings. They took Tom and Kathy took me for a ride in their Model X, and it's got some pretty cool features to it. The doors have sensors built into them that changes the shape as they move up. If they detect an object next to the car, they will raise more vertically before the wing folds out, and things like that. And then when they come down, of course, they also have sensing. If there's a person or somebody standing under them, they'll stop or they'll back up. So they got some cool features designed in to prevent the door from bonking you in the head or crushing you. It doesn't have a rear view mirror, but it uses, or theirs didn't anyway, and it uses the big screen in the middle of the console at the rear facing camera. So you get this like a gigantic rear view. It's actually kind of neat, totally unobstructed. So that was a kind of an interesting experience, having that, basically looking at where you've been as you're zipping down the roads. And then the Model Y, which their latest offering, and these will be seeing more and more of these. I'll have to kind of figure out what the particular unique features of this one are, because it has a little bit of the look of the X in its styling, but I'm sure it's got kind of a little.
I mean, it is a crossover. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's a cross between the X and the 3.
And the 3, yeah. So we'll be seeing more and more of these showing up out there.
Yeah, that's what my boss replaced his Bolt with.
And the car that completes the SEXY sequence.
Yeah. So what's he gonna do next? I don't know. Yeah. So then he's got Sexy Roadster, right? Because he doesn't have any more letters, so he had to call this one, the Roadster. I'm calling it a second generation Roadster, since it's the rebirth of that car. So it's got very, very similar general style of the thing with a few updates and such. So, and then of course you got this monstrosity.
I want one of these. I really
you want one of those? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a cool YouTube video of Jay Leno and Elon Musk going for a ride in one of these things there, and of course Jay Leno he's a character anyway, and it's fun to just listen to him chatter about what he thinks of this thing and stuff. And he liked it actually, but he said, he had some pretty funny comments when he saw it when Elon pulled up with it, and he actually got into it because it's just like, thing doesn't even look like a truck. So
I was looking for headlights on that, and I think there's a strip across.
That's it right there. Yep. I understand there are some, there's some legal requirements in terms of what what is required. So I think this is not actually the production version of the thing. They may have to put some things on there. Elon would like to make this thing as aerodynamic as possible, but unfortunately there's legal reasons that he can't necessarily do that. So
one of the things I really like about that is that roll top desk cover in the
cover
back.
in the back, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that it goes up at an angle as opposed to going across flat, or at least if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yep, it does.
That's kind of unique.
It is. And they do some, and there's some interesting, I don't know if you've seen that, there's somebody built a trailer that's styled similar to this guy, a fifth wheel style trailer that this thing can pull, and and there's a little camper thing too that actually it unfolds. It unfolds from the back end of the truck, so the thing folds down fairly compactly into the truck, and then it kind of does this transformer-like thing where it unfolds and extends, and then you've got this little camper that just goes right along with the car. It's kind of an interesting idea. Not cheap. Volkswagen. Our good buddies Volkswagen jumping into the fray here, ID3 and ID4. And these guys also, they're on the hook to do a pretty large infrastructure upgrade. I think they got to put about $2 billion into building chargers around the country as part of their settlement for Dieselgate. So this is neat looking car though. They had some of these at South Center. They were offering test drives. So they had one of these sitting inside the mall there, and there was some people around it, and everybody trying to kind of, generate hype about the coming car. And I didn't have the opportunity at the time. I would have been fun to take one for a test drive just to see what it's like. And then this guy, this is kind of cool, and I it's about time to bring this thing back. The VW bus. That was just those were kind of cool in their day. I remember the little 4-cylinder air-cooled engines that these things had, and grew up with a
I think conversions are fun.
Oh yeah, and VWs are pretty popular for electric conversions, just because the car is relatively simple. Now anymore, you get liable to spend so much money on batteries and controllers and everything else. It's like, you might as well just go buy a used Leaf.
The EV West, which is big in electric car conversions, they specialize in. I think they only actually do VWs.
VWs.
They're right down the road from me, and I've had a chance to go over there and see some of their stuff. What's funny to me is that they'll take a clapped out, rusted, no paint job, just piece of junk VW van, and the only way that you can tell that something isn't right is that the tires look really good. And you pull up next to somebody at the light, somebody that's driving some fancy ICE engine, sports car or whatever, and then just blow the doors off of them on the light charge screen.
It's awesome. Yeah. Volvo Polestar. So this is this is probably more of a luxury level vehicle, but this thing's coming down the pike here pretty quick. I don't think people are test driving them, so I'm wondering if the or I should say that, you know, video people on videos are driving these things. I'm guessing that you can order them. It's always, I think one of the things that's kind of interesting is, you know, the LED headlights are really kind of cool, and you know, and that's not limited to electric cars, but they have definitely exploited that, and just the interesting styles of that have been applied. So that is all I have. Anybody have any parting grenades to toss out there or anything?
Well, the Ford F-150 Lightning launches in 4 days.
Ah.
It's their new electric truck, and then the Ford all-electric Transit, you know, similar to the NV200, is also launches for 2022 model year.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the Mercedes Sprinter, which will probably also come out that same time, and those get rebranded as all sorts of things.
Yeah.
The nice thing about the Transit is, and one thing, the Transit is, you know, it's made in the U.S., which is a pretty rare thing for a lot of these vehicles, is one of the few plants that Ford hasn't shuttered down from a chip shortage this year.
Huh.
It's the electric Transit line.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Has anybody had any experience with conversions, you know, of existing vehicles to electric?
I haven't. You know, I looked at it and it was just, it wasn't worth it. It's never really been worth it.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
you say it's not worth it, but if you love the shape of the Karmann Ghia, or
yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, there's always those people. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
I buy my car to commute in.
So there's a video in the list of a company that goes and takes old vehicles like Land Rovers and other such vehicles and electrifies the chassis. So they take the original body, drop it on top of a modern electric chassis. It's not cheap. It's actually quite expensive to do that, but their idea is that you can take a classic car that you like, you know, the look of this car, and make it into an electric car. And there's a, let me see here. I'm gonna grab my doc here. So these are links to the various vehicles, and then let's see here what all best.
Are you going to share a link to this doc in the meeting doc?
Yeah, it'll be under in the meeting in the web log for this meeting. There'll be a PDF, and all these links will be active in there, so you can go and you know, search this stuff. I mean, there's just a ton of things here about. I mean, we could spend days, weeks, you know, perusing all of this stuff. Yeah, there's so many options out there, and they're growing rapidly. I will mention this here, the tax credit. So just got done, did my taxes here about a month ago or so, and since I bought my car last year, I got to take the tax credit, the federal tax credit, and then I also got a break on the sales tax. So there's a change coming to the sales tax. So I just read about this. The federal tax credit, you don't get it for Teslas anymore because they've crossed the 200,000 vehicle production. So you don't get anything for those. But most other car manufacturers haven't reached that threshold yet. But there is a link in here that tells you. I think you can get to it from the link that I have here, and it'll tell you what the tax credits are for the various vehicles that are out there. So with the sales tax, they take the first 25,000 of the price of the vehicle, and you don't have to pay sales tax on that, but you have to pay it on whatever the residual is above that, up to 45,000, I think, is the upper end limit. So no more. So it's like between 25 and 45,000. So whatever the price is, that's what you'll pay sales tax on. They're going to drop that. The percentage threshold is going to go from 25% down to 20%. So they're kind of starting to sort of taper back on how much of the sales of the vehicle's cost they're going to exclude from sales tax. So instead of 25% of it excluded, it's only going to, or 25,000, excuse me, it's only going to be 20,000. So then you're going to end up, paying sales tax on another 5,000. So $500. So anyway, and I think that change is actually coming fairly soon here in the next few months. So if you're thinking about it or on the fence about getting something, you might want to look into that if that makes any difference to you. So there's oh my goodness, there's so many things. Wireless charging on the road, built-in road wireless charging. There's some cool stuff on that. There's new battery technologies that are coming out, solid-state batteries. There's just things are changing so fast. They're just it's just it's pretty amazing. When I was trying to dig through to find out what am I going to talk about with you guys, it's like, holy mackerel, what am I not going to talk about? Because there is so much. So I'll let you guys peruse this as you please. Probably take me a few days to get it up on the website, but check on that when you have a chance. But so anyway, appreciate everybody hanging out here. It looks like there's still quite a few of you. I didn't put you all to sleep. I hope this was an enjoyable and interesting discussion, and we could certainly do it again sometime. So,
but it's kind of not what I came for, but it is a really interesting thing to learn about all of the electric cars.
Oh my goodness, yeah, and
for all the times we had SRS meetings where we said we're not going to get into a long battery discussion, it's nice to have a long battery discussion.
We could do that. That's it's in the up here on the screen you see this portable liquid air power, a do boost for electric vehicles. That's a YouTube video about something. Apparently that's not new technology. That's actually been around for quite some time, and there's just all kinds of interesting and fascinating ways that things can go. Solar charging. I mean, we didn't talk about, people put solar chargers on their roof to charge their cars and provide extra power for their house and all that. And
well, I'm sad that I missed the discussion of batteries. That's I want to hear that.
Well, we haven't actually done that yet. So you haven't missed it. So
I definitely want that because that's very robot important. That's critical.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's just, it's a matter of just kind of pulling together a bunch of stuff and digging it out, and so okay, I'll put that on my list of things to work on here. So with that, thank you all for attending, and we will see you guys all next month. Oh yeah, okay. So we got and do consider doing a talk or something for the virtual Robothon event. That would be great. It'd be nice to get as many folks participating as we can. So keep that in mind. With that, thank you all. And I will stop recording.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, you're